x86 folder on Windows machines. So let me go ahead and show you what I'm talking about. Bring this on screen, go into my boot disk, and you see how there's two program files folders. If you have 64-bit, it's going to go into this folder, and if you have 32-bit, it's going to go into this folder. And that's only if you have a 64-bit operating system. If you have a 32-bit operating system, you don't have to worry about this. You just have to give you any specific recommendations because everybody's internet speeds are completely different. I'll tell you from my own personal experience, these are the settings that I use, and I get about 30 megabits per second up. That's upload speed, which is much higher than the average for most people. So I would encourage you to check. I would not recommend streaming at all unless you get at least 1 megabit up, preferably 2. So anyway, you can choose the quality level, 10 being the highest, and then your max bit rate in kilobits per second, and then your buffer size. These are the settings that I use for my internet speeds. I would go ahead and encourage you to research what people use compared to their max internet speeds that they get. I've heard that 2,000 kilobits per second is acceptable for people with, I think, 5 megabits upload. So yeah, this is what I use. And for audio encoding, we have different audio codecs. I prefer the AAC codec myself with a 320 kilobit bit rate, and format is already locked up. Broadcast settings. Right here, you have your mode between file output, that's for screen capture, and live stream. And then you get to choose your service. And I broadcast using Twitch. You need to have your stream key in order to stream. You choose the server that is closest to where you are. So that could be New York, if you're on the West Coast, Los Angeles. So yeah, auto reconnect, clicking this is a good option, and then 10 seconds is the default, I believe. Moving on to video. Would you like to save and apply your changes? No. This is also very important. Base resolution, I use custom 1280 by 720. That is the resolution of the screen in which you are capturing. So let's say you want to capture full screen on a monitor that is 1080p. You would want to make sure that you have 1920 by 1080 as your base resolution. Resolution downscale. This is the resolution that is going to be broadcasted. I downscale to 480p at 60 frames per second for my viewers, so that I can have more people who watch without dropped frames and stuff like that. Disable arrow at startup. I usually have this clicked. It's a very good option to have. So just like that. Right now, I don't have it checked because I actually need arrow in order to record from my desktop using Fraps. So moving on. Audio. This is where you set up your microphone. I'm currently using my Rode Podcaster. You can have push to talk, hotkeys for muting, unmuting, and everything like that. I don't use hotkeys or anything like that. I just have my microphone directly feeding into it. In advanced settings, use multi-threaded options. I would only click this if you have a Intel processor that supports multi-threading. This option right here is based on what sort of processor you have. I use the very fast because that was the default setting. At some point I plan on testing the higher settings since I have an i5 2500K processor. I would just be aware that unless you have one of the latest generations of the Intel Core processors, I would be very wary of going anything over very fast. For audio, I use higher quality resampling. Network, use send buffer. I use the 16 384 setting. I'm not sure whether this is universal or whether it's based on my machine, but those are the settings that I use. Okay, so now that we have initial settings set up, most people are like, okay, so I can start streaming, but how do I get inputs and everything like that? Well, that's a good question, and it took me a really long time to figure it out. What you want to do actually is you want to right-click under Scenes right here, which will bring up this menu. You want to do Add Scene. You can name it any.
हाय गाइस। आज हम ट्यूटोरियल में सीखेंगे कैसे आईबल का टीवी ट्यूनर कार्ड लैपटॉप में कनेक्ट किया जाता है। नमस्ते, मैं हूं पोलस्टी। चलो आओ देखते हैं। ये आईबल का बॉक्स है, इसमें क्या दिया गया है चलो आओ देखते हैं। आओ इसको ओपन करते हैं। इसको ओपन कर दीजिए। इसमें सीडी दिया गया है। एक्चुअली ये टीवी ट्यूनर का ड्राइवर है और जो सॉफ्टवेयर आपको इंस्टॉल करना पड़ेगा।